Hey everyone, welcome to. So, chords, right? But not in the most traditional sense. We're going to talk about chords, but in the sense of triads. Triads are the building blocks of chords and chord progressions in any musical arrangement, whether it's a guitar or it's a piano or any other musical instrument which produces melody or like apart from drums, right? So chords basically, whenever you hear chords, you can all you think of is playing. So these are what are called open chords. Now these sounds great, right? But when you are creating, let's say, music, and when you are arranging a piece for someone, the best possible thing that you can do is arrange music in a way which drives your melody forward. So there has to be some chord voicing that other players, other band members, or even your vocalist or your entire song can follow. For example, let's consider this famous chord progression of Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall. I'm pretty sure you've all heard it already. I'm going to try and play it with some bar chords on lower pitch, and let's see how it sounds. And instead of playing the pattern like this, I'm going to try and play how it's actually played in the song. So the chords we have are D minor, C major, G major, and F major. Instead of playing the traditional bar chords, we've got triads at higher frets. So let's see how that sounds. Do you hear the difference? And that's exactly what I'm talking about. So triads are probably the most important thing when you're creating your own music. And it won't only help you in creating a good chord progression, but also it's going to help you create awesome solos. So if you have a backing track, for example, you can follow the chord changes if you know where the triads are on your entire fretboard, and you can solo very beautifully on any backing track, on any chord progression. So let's dive into triads. For example, we're going to consider group of strings. So we'll take strings, the high E, B, G, and B, G, and D. So string numbers 1, 2, 3, and 2, 3, 4. I'm going to try and make this as easy as possible for you. Let's take any chord, for example. G major, everyone's favorite chord, right? This is what you play when you go to a guitar store or when you first hold your guitar. Anyways, so if you talk about G major, everyone knows that this is a G major chord and this is also a G major chord. But if we talk about triad, which we can move across the entire fretboard, we only got to be looking for 3 notes, and those 3 notes would be the G, the B, and the D. So the G being the root, the B being the third, which is a major third, and D being the fifth, which is a perfect fifth. So if I wanted to play the G major chord, I need to look for the root, the G, on the lowest sounding string, which out of the first, second, and third is the G string. So where would I find the G note on the G string itself? Obviously on the 12th fret. And then I have B, and then I've got D. So I've got G, B, and D. So this is the G major chord. And this exactly is the shape of any major chord on these 3 strings, where the root will move along the G string, which is string number 3. So if you are playing this shape here, this being the E becomes the E major chord. If you are playing it here, this note being D on the G string becomes a D major chord. So as long as you move your this hand, across the entire fretboard on these 3 strings, you would be able to find any major position, any major chord, given that your root would move along the G string. Now, you may have noticed that I am not talking about minor chords. The reason for that is because minor chords are basically just a flat third from the 3 notes, the root, the third, and the perfect fifth in a major chord. You may have noticed that I'm not talking about minor chords. That's because minor chords just have a flat third. This is the position of a major chord. This is the shape by which you can play any major chord on these 3 strings. Now moving on to inversions. The first inversion, where the normal chord has a root, a third, and a fifth stacked that way, an inversion would have the fifth first, then the root, and then the third. It's a simple cycle that basically carries along. Now, to do that, we are going to focus on finding our root note on the B string, which is the second string. Now, if I wanted to find my root note along the B string, again considering the G major chord, I'm going to find my root note G. So, we all know that this is E, then F, F sharp, G. Then the rest of the notes would be just B and D. So this would be D and this would be B. Does this look familiar? Of course it does. This is how you normally play the D major chord. So you see, you've actually already been playing those chords your probably entire guitar player's life, but you just didn't know about it. That's because you've been playing your D major open chord starting from the 4th string. And that's a normal chord, because the root is on the lowest string, which is the D string, as in the form of an open D string. By targeting just these 3 strings, we get this position, which is basically just an extension of the caged system, the D major chord from the caged system. And that is what you need to remember, that your root note is on the 2nd string, and wherever you move it along, you will be able to find your chord. So if you move it here, this becomes your E major chord. So this was your E major, and this is also your E major. You see how the voice changes? That's because the pitch of the notes have changed, even though the notes are still the same. Now, moving on to the next inversion. Second inversion. Second inversion is where you have the root is the highest sounding note, which has the highest pitch. Your fifth is in the middle. Your third is the lowest note, and that is what's called a second inversion. So, considering a G major chord has 3 notes, G, B, and D. The fifth is going to be the middle note, and the major third is going to be the lowest note, and the root is going to be the highest note. So this is where the G is, and this is where the D is, and this is B. So this shape is your G major, second inversion. The next part is finding these triads on string numbers 2, 3, and 4. Now, string numbers 2, 3, and 4 are B, G, and D. Again, if I wanted to find a normal chord, not an inversion, just a normal chord on string numbers 2, 3, and 4, all I need to do is first find the root note on the lowest sounding string, which in this case is string number 4, or the D string. Again, considering the G major chord, we'll find the note G, which happens to be right here on string number 4, fret number 5. So I will hold that note G, and then I'm going to need B, and then I'm going to need D. As simple as that. So that becomes my G major chord. So now on to the second part, which is finding the first inversion on string numbers 2, 3, and 4. Now, if you want to find the inversion on string number 2, 3, and 4, do not worry about thinking how I'm going to stack these chords, where the fifth has to be. Oh, I'm going to go crazy visualizing these notes and their stacking. So don't focus on that. Simply follow this ideology. If you want to find a normal chord, not any inversions, just find the root on the lowest sounding string. Simple, which is here. If you want to find the first inversion, just find your root note on the mid pitch string, which in this case is string number 3, which is also a G string. Again, on the G string, I'm going to find the root note on the 12th fret. Now I need B and D. So I've got D right here. All I need is B, and which is also right here. Get it? So I've got G, B, D, which if you notice is an extension of the A major. Now, third part is the second inversion. Now on the second inversion, you just need to make sure that your root note is on the highest pitched string, which in this case is string number 2. So if I wanted to find, again considering G major chord, if I wanted to find G, it would be right here, and then I'm going to need D, which is right here, then I'm going to need B, which is right here. This is one of the favorite methods of holding chords of John Mayer. This is how he likes to hold his chords. I mean, he said so in one of his interviews, so that's where I remember it from. And this is also a chord from the song Slow Dancing in a Burning Room, and this is the E major chord, and this is how he basically plays it. So this is how you hold a second inversion on strings 2, 3, and 4. To recap it all, I'm going to start recapping with strings 2, 3, and 4. So on strings 2, 3, and 4, this is how you hold a major chord. This is what a major chord shape looks like on strings 2, 3, and 4. This is what the first inversion looks like on strings 2, 3, and 4. However you want to hold it. However you want to hold it. And this is what the second inversion looks like on strings 2, 3, and 4. Talking about strings 1, 2, and 3, this is what a normal chord shape looks like. A major triad looks like on strings 1, 2, and 3. This is what a first inversion looks like, the D major chord shape. This is a first inversion triad of the major chord. And this is what a second inversion looks like. So that's it. Those are your triads. Now you can just go about practicing your triads and try to use these chords instead of using the open chords to create your arrangements. You can also put your open chords in the back of these chords and embellish them as much as you want. And I'm pretty sure now if you go and try to solo on any backing track, you're gonna be much better after practicing your triads on these 4 strings, because you would be able to follow the chord changes and the chord voicings and the melody itself. Well, that about wraps up today's video, and I hope you learned something. Come back for more. I'll see you soon.